Welcome, everybody, to our special preview of WrestleMania 31, or as this year, Jimmy, WrestleMania play button, because it seems that the numbers are slowly being phased out in favor of logos, such as the play button. Are you against this idea of phasing out the numbers, which seems to be the case?
Yeah, I am, because I like the idea of the numbers.
Of course.
31, I mean, you look at the Super Bowls, they don't just say it's a Super Bowl play button.
No.
The more WrestleManias they are, the more prestigious it sounds. It sounds like more of a tradition.
I think it makes the event feel so much bigger, grander, that you've had so much of a history behind it. I mean, the Super Bowl is the perfect analogy, but even the UFC, I mean, people thought it's like, oh, it's ridiculous how many numbers they're getting up to. But then UFC 100 came around, and it was a massive deal just because it was UFC 100. And they loaded up the show. They'll do the same for UFC 200. Yep. I think numbers, it's a great idea. It's one of those small things, but why would you get rid of that?
And every year you come up with one where there's a zero at the end. You make it a big deal.
Of course.
But then there's 50, there's 75, there's... Will it get that high?
We'll find out. It'll probably be long after our days here, Jimmy, unless we are still here previewing WrestleMania 75. But it's 31 happening this Sunday from Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Certainly this has been a WrestleMania where you look at what has been built up, and a lot of it has centered around kind of what you wanted out of this main event. I mean, Roman Reigns has been the guy that they've been getting ready for this spot. But then Daniel Bryan all of a sudden came back in January, and it gave everyone this idea of this dream match with Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar. So starting off in the main event picture, how have you seen Roman Reigns taking to this spot and them, presenting him as their potential next top guy?
I liked it. This thing started last year, obviously. It started at the Royal Rumble where people were hot for him, whether it was because they didn't want Batista to win or not. Whatever the reason was, people got behind Roman Reigns. And as the year progressed, people seemed to back him, despite the fact that out of the former members of the Shield, he was deemed as the, let's say, the least in-ring savvy guy.
Right.
Because,
just the experience alone. I mean,
exactly.
This guy's only been doing this about three and a half years, whereas you have Ambrose and Rollins, who have almost an entire career of independent experience behind them. They just came in with more experience. They were better equipped. Reigns is very much new to the industry as a whole.
Right, and he was going to be brought along slowly, and I thought he was being built the right way until the unfortunate injury. Then when he came back, everything seemed to kind of slowly come back on track. But like you said, Daniel Bryan came back, and then there was that instant, we want Daniel Bryan in the main event picture again.
Yes.
And it kind of derailed everything, and it kind of, I thought it was, I think it's a good test for Roman Reigns to see how he would react. I think he's improved a lot.
Yep.
Especially in the last few months in this build-up to WrestleMania. He's improved in the ring. He's improved on the microphone, which is very difficult, and it's unfair to compare him when he's in the ring with someone like Paul Heyman and say, well, he was horrible. Everybody in the ring against Paul Heyman is going to be horrible on the microphone. There's just no contest there. So the unfair comparisons, I just want people to give it a chance. Is he ready? Is he not ready? I guess we'll see it at WrestleMania. There's no way to tell right now whether he's ready or not until it happens. But if you're not going to give him a chance going in, and at least kind of invest some time and say, hey, impress me. If you impress me, I can get behind you. There's this mindset where we hate him, we're not going to like him going in.
I think there's that fear that this crowd is going to just turn on this match, and they all have these fears of Brock Lesnar, Bill Goldberg from 2004. Right. I don't think you're going to see that. Even if this is a very pro-Lesnar crowd and negative Roman Reigns crowd, I don't think that ruins the match. I think it creates actually a really interesting dynamic where Brock Lesnar does feel like this babyface that is ready to explode. The crowd loves this guy, and they just want to be given the reason to get behind him. And I think that audience is likely going to be a very pro-Lesnar crowd, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. This is probably not going to be your classic Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle match, but it was never going to be. I think, though, the crowd, if people are worried about the crowd turning on the match and ruining the match, I don't foresee that on Sunday.
Well, that's always a fear, at least going in, because the WrestleMania crowd, the hardcore, the diehards are going to be there. And, of course, the next night at Raw won't be the telltale signs, again, if the Roman Reigns experiment is a success or a failure. I think it's going to be the following Raw the next week. I don't remember where they are the week after WrestleMania. But that, I think, is going to be more of an indicative, a barometer whether the Roman Reigns experiment is working or not, because, the WrestleMania crowd is a little different from, your casual fans, at least anyways.
Is this, it seems that the last couple of weeks of television as well, they have realized that, Roman Reigns is certainly this project for them. The crowd has not gone insane for him, and they've used this angle of Brock Lesnar after showing up at the UFC 184 pay-per-view that we're going to kind of present this as Brock Lesnar. Okay, the cat's out of the bag. We know his contract's up. He's the champion. Maybe he's not going to go along with the plan. It's getting a little inside baseball with some fans, but doing it in a way where I think they understand the general picture. So you're not necessarily just playing to a very small amount of the audience. What have you thought of the way they've positioned Brock, where they're basically outlining it that if he wants to go to the UFC, he's going to go to the UFC, and he's taking the title with him?
It's kind of reminiscent of the old CM Punk thing that he's going to take the
very
title
much.
and leave. But the brilliance behind it is having Paul Heyman as the spokesperson behind it, because nobody walks that fine line between reality and what's they say kayfabe is dead, but but Paul Heyman walks that line brilliantly, and he's great at enticing the smart crowd as well as the casual fans.
But not going too far off, which was WCW in 2000, where it was the idea of, just playing to this hardcore audience and right down to, cameras catching guys working out their matches. And it was just like, man, you are completely cutting off the majority of your fans. Right. I think you can play that line and appease both.
Yeah. There is a way to do the work shoot so that it works in today's 2015. I mean, like you said, in WCW, the work shoot was like overdone and killed. But it's working because I think mainly because of Paul Heyman's presentation and the way he delivers it to the crowd. I think that works.
Has he been the MVP going into this show? Like top to bottom, I don't think anybody has contributed more to the interest level of WrestleMania than Paul Heyman this year.
It fell upon him to be the main spokesperson to present this main event and the build to the main event. And yeah, you got to give him the MVP. And we'll get into it later, but close second for me is Bray Wyatt.
What happens on WrestleMania, the finish? Who is leaving that show with the title? Because you have those two options and the wild card in Seth Rollins. Do you see them playing that card at WrestleMania?
I don't think so, because, again, going back to last year, the whole year has been a build to make Brock Lesnar this unbeatable monster. And going into WrestleMania, it's the same thing. Can he defeat the monster? And I think whoever is the guy, and I think it's going to be Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns does defeat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. It has to be done one-on-one without interference. It has to be somewhat clean victory without any interference to be the one to defeat the one in 21-1, going back to last year's streak, or else defeating The Undertaker last year means absolutely zilch.
Yeah, and that's why you look at the long term of this, why this has really been positioned for a year out for Roman Reigns in this coronation ceremony. If you have the audience that is very negative to a Roman Reigns title win, and I think that's a very viable reaction, do you chalk it up to this is the WrestleMania crowd, we're going to get this crowd the next night, we are going to ride this out, Roman Reigns is going to be our top babyface? Or are you open to the idea that there are more options for Roman Reigns as a heel coming out of WrestleMania and the babyface lineup that he has to work with?
It's funny because you could thinking of options going forward, maybe it's a master plan by the entire Shield organization. We're going to pretend to break up and go our own separate ways, but then at the end of WrestleMania, we'll all be standing tall with titles. Maybe Ambrose comes out with the IC title. Maybe Seth Rollins comes in and just
resurrect the hardcore title.
Yeah, I don't know. Do something. I don't know. Can he cash in against John Cena if he wins the U.S. title? I don't know. But anyways, maybe there's a master plan behind it, but I doubt that. If there is going to be a cash-in by Rollins, though, I hope it's not on WrestleMania, because you have to have that big WrestleMania moment with Roman Reigns in the title. Maybe the next night on Raw, then you get that big, huge reaction the next night from the crowd. That if Rollins were to cash in on Reigns on the post-WrestleMania Raw, if you imagine the crowd reaction, they'd blow the roof off that.
They'd love him. The Undertaker is back this year. He will be taking on Jimmy Corderas' runner-up in MVP this year, Bray Wyatt. What does The Undertaker at WrestleMania mean to you without the streak, as a man that has actually been in the main event of WrestleMania for an Undertaker match in 2008?
Yeah, you know what? I once you get past the fact that the streak is over, it's just, again, there are very few individuals in this business who are very special, that can show up once a year, twice a year, and still command that presence. Brock Lesnar has proven, I think, over the last year that he can be that special guy that doesn't have to be on all the time.
And less is much more in his case.
Absolutely. The Undertaker is a special attraction, and I'm okay with him coming back once a year. I think it's very special, and the fact that I'm a big Undertaker fan doesn't hurt my opinion here. But at the same time, I think it's something that he should do for as long as he thinks he can handle it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As long as he can compete in a match at the level that he deems to be appropriate, I think he deserves that chance to come back every year. And
you have the potential for the ultimate of send-offs next year at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, right. Whether you want to piggyback that with the Hall of Fame. I mean, that to me is the ideal send-off for The Undertaker next year at what could be the company's biggest show ever.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, I guess, star next year.
32. I'm saying it, 32. I don't care. Yeah.
Is this a clear-cut Undertaker win, send people home happy after sending them home miserable last year that the streak ended, or is there an argument that The Undertaker has lost now at WrestleMania and this could be a huge victory for Bray Wyatt, and after kind of getting stagnant last year, this is very much reheats Bray Wyatt if he were to win this match?
I think that it doesn't hurt Undertaker to lose to Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't think he needs his win back from last year. Mm-hmm. If he's going to get a win back against anybody, it's got to be Brock Lesnar, not Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt, like I said, my runner-up for MVP because his promos have always been great, but there seemed to be no direction to them for a while until this build towards WrestleMania where he had a purpose, he had a focus, towards The Undertaker. I think his mic work has been brilliant. Like I said, very close to... very reminiscent of old Jake Roberts, like when he was at the height of his Trust Me stage,
Sure.
And that sort of stuff. I think Bray Wyatt benefits more from a win here because, and it's not so much because he lost last year to John Cena or anything like that. It's because of what he's saying in his promos is he wants to be the new face of fear. He wants to be the new whatever.
Is he bringing Ming and the Barbarian to replace Harper and Rowan?
Hey, if anybody...
The faces of fear are back.
Even today... however many years later, I would take Ming and the Barbarian over anybody on the roster in a shoot. Anyways.
Throwing Jimmy Hart there with Bray Wyatt.
Oh yeah,
oh
it'd be
man,
awesome. Bring back the Taskmaster. We're all cool. But I think there's a huge upside potential in Bray Wyatt being the next mystical character in the WWE.
If you are to do Undertaker's big send off next year, what's the ideal match for you?
Oh man,
who's that perfect opponent? Would it be Brock?
Brock is definitely an option because, like we talked about, Brock is a huge star now, and his limited appearances are perfect for him. And getting his win back against Brock would be cool. But I think maybe a John Cena Undertaker because we haven't seen that at WrestleMania.
Yeah. We can talk about John Cena. He'll be taking on Rusev for the United States Championship. I think this has been just a very logical build for this. Mm-hmm. The anti-American against the patriotic John Cena, and John Cena cutting patriotic promos. It seems that as John Cena has been taken out of that title picture, you're not necessarily getting that polarizing reaction to him. It's like the crowd is just solidly behind John Cena. They had a very good match at Fastlane. I'm pretty sure they're going to have another one on Sunday, and it just seems that this has been a well-built-up match for kind of your fourth, fifth from the top match. Do you put the title on to John Cena, or is there the idea that if you are coming out with Roman Reigns, you need challengers for this guy, and you do want to keep Rusev with the undefeated streak?
I like keeping the undefeated streak. I mean, obviously, John Cena winning the U.S. Championship would be elevating the title. I mean, there's that old argument, does the title elevate the superstar, or does the superstar elevate the title? But the U.S. Championship, along with the Intercontinental Championship, haven't been very much relevant.
I think it's very much the guy at this point.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time to get those titles back up.
It used to be a time where the title was very prestigious, and whoever held the title became a made man for holding that title. Now, because the titles have been devalued so much, you have to put somebody like a John Cena, or possibly in the other match, a Daniel Bryan, and put the titles on them to elevate the titles back to the status they were. But in this case, that's the case, I think, in the Intercontinental Championship. I'm jumping ahead here.
Go ahead.
Daniel Bryan would be a perfect choice for the Intercontinental Championship because he could elevate that title because he's the most over guy in the company right now. as far as the U.S. title. I don't think John Cena needs to win that title, but being in that match and having Rusev defeat him at WrestleMania will elevate both Rusev and that title at the same time. So does John Cena need to be U.S. champion to elevate the U.S. championship? I don't think so, not in this case.
Yeah, it's a case where you could certainly make the argument that that secondary title now in the company that the audience views as such is now a briefcase. That is now the symbol of this is the guy that is right on the cusp of making that jump into a main performer, which is what the IC title was so many years back, and going back what the U.S. title was in the NWA at the time. Now it's a briefcase where you win that and suddenly, okay, we've been educated now to know that means, with the exception of Damian Sandow, that you are the next guy in line. And even to Damian Sandow's point, when he cashed it in, people bought every near fall because that briefcase has been protected. And even Damian Sandow, people believed maybe he's going to win the title.
No, and speaking of Damian Sandow, I think his work with The Miz has been great.
Yeah, we'll get into that because that is something that they have, it's a small feud, but one that has been so well built up for the ultimate payoff at WrestleMania. But let's chat about the ladder match. 7 individuals in this match. The 2 key guys being Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose. That many would look over the past year that these 2 are guys that have eclipsed this level of a match at WrestleMania. We know it's going to be a great match at WrestleMania. You suggest Daniel Bryan winning the championship. Is there the argument as well that was Daniel Bryan needed for this comeback in January? I mean, he has, taken a lot of focus from the main event because people wanted to see him in that. Right. It could have been the idea that we don't have a solid plan for this guy going into WrestleMania, and certainly everyone wants to work the big show, but is there more value for us as a company in Bryan showing up the night after WrestleMania, confronting Roman Reigns, saying, hey, I never lost that title, and you have that kind of a program?
See, that's the unfortunate thing. And when you present something, bringing Daniel Bryan back before the Rumble, announcing him for the Rumble. In hindsight, obviously, it looks like, oh, maybe they should have put it off for a little while. And I like that idea. That absolutely.
I would have been fine with the return if even if it wasn't headlining WrestleMania, you had a real big idea for Daniel Bryan, something that's at least comparable to what he did last year. But it felt like this year they didn't have that big plan for him. He's being put in a match where it'll be a great match, but we've seen millions of great matches from Daniel Bryan. I don't know if he necessarily gets a whole lot out of this match, which is deeper on the card. It's going to be a great match, but you can certainly say that it's provided more harm than good having Bryan back on television and having that divide, which is somewhat hurt Reigns.
Well, yeah, that's a valid point, but at the same time, again, going back to trying to elevate the Intercontinental Championship, you look at the recent reign by Wade Barrett. Did he win a match while he was while he was Intercontinental Champion on TV? I didn't see him win a single match. I mean, the last couple of weeks he's looked pretty strong, bullhammering everybody after matches, but he never wins them. And it's this weird idea of you have to beat the Intercontinental Champion in a non-title match to get a title match, which makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Or just steal it in a burlap sack.
Sure, why not? And as far as the build goes to that, I don't like the hot potato, I'm going to steal it, I'm going to take it kind of thing. That I don't like. I like the idea of many people wanting to become Intercontinental Champion, and I like a lot of the guys that are in the match.
How about one promo from a guy about the importance of this title, how they grew up watching this? Instead, to me, it's like the whole stealing the title, that's a one-show storyline, and then we move on. But that's been every show since they've come up with this. It just, to me, I'd like to hear some guys talk about why they're going into this dangerous ladder match, and Daniel Bryan is coming back from a neck injury, but he's going to risk all of that recovery time to win this title. I just want to hear that once.
That would be a good promo from Daniel Bryan, especially considering, because I've said in the past that one of the reasons I didn't like Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar was a safety factor.
Sure.
Because it would be a very physical match against Brock Lesnar. Can you imagine 16 suplexes that Daniel?
And Bryan is going to do that in
exactly.
a match like Lesnar, and that's one of my fears of this ladder match, to be honest. I don't know how much Bryan benefits from it, and I know the guy's going to kill himself in this match.
Well, the one thing, though, there are 7 guys in the match. As of now, you don't know if anybody's going to get added, but as of now, there's 7 guys in the match. So in the fact that there's 7 guys, he can be somewhat protected to maybe 1 or 2 crazy spots as opposed to going all out crazy. Because you've got a guy like Dean Ambrose who's going to do crazy stuff. Dolph Ziggler is going to be the ridiculous bump machine. Luke Harper, we know, is not afraid to.
Him and Ziggler really kind of set the bar a few months ago with their ladder match. That was just, I mean, the guys went out there and just did everything they could in a ladder match.
So there are enough guys in there that are going to take enough crazy spills and bumps. Actually worried about Wade Barrett too, because he's had a couple injuries. So
sure,
this is going to be the whoever doesn't get injured match. Will probably come out Intercontinental Champion. I hope it's Daniel Bryan. I really do.
Triple H and Sting, we should touch upon that singles match. I believe that Sting, if he is not it doesn't receive the biggest reaction of the show, it may be only second to Lesnar or Undertaker. I mean, I think it's going to be an incredible reaction for Sting. I think this is going to be very reminiscent of Hogan Rock, maybe not at that level of heat for the match, but in the sense that this crowd is going to love whatever they do. I think it's going to be a well laid out match. I think Triple H was a smart choice to put with Sting in this match. Whether they go 15 minutes or so, I think that's around the time we can expect. But I think the event of Sting's first WrestleMania match, first WWE match, is going to be enough that this crowd is going to enjoy this. I think it's going to turn out very well. I
absolutely agree, and you hit the nail on the head. Triple H is the smart choice because, like you said, the match will be structured perfectly. I know Jason was for years wanted to see that Undertaker Sting match at WrestleMania.
Oh, of course, for years.
And I get that, I understand that, but at the same time, you're bringing in Sting for his one WrestleMania moment against the Undertaker, who at the time the streak was still intact. Somebody's got to lose the match.
It's also a tough dynamic because Sting is going to, whether you had presented him as a heel coming in, I mean, he was going to be loved on this show, as will The Undertaker. I think that's a tough dynamic to pull off as opposed to this one, which is kind of the safer one where you have Triple H and it's going to be a clear split with the audience. Right. So what do you do in this match with Sting? I guess the idea to me that it's going to be one and done for Sting, I have a hard time believing because I think he is going to get an incredible reaction and there's going to be the immediate thoughts of what is next for Sting coming out of WrestleMania.
I wonder if it's going to lead to something because they're alluding to the fact that Sting has a problem with certain heel authority figures and he doesn't like the way that Triple H has been, I guess, for lack of a better term, bullying the roster. Maybe that plays into it. Maybe it plays into a stipulation match down the road between him and Triple H where if Triple H loses and he loses control of the company and Sting becomes the de facto authority figure or something like that. Or if Sting loses, then he has to just disappear.
The card will also feature the Bella Twins taking on AJ Lee and Paige. We also have a 4-way tag title match and the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, with the major focus being The Miz and Mizdow in that match. Is this the Mizdow winning the match and it's the ultimate turn? Because they have built this up so well that when he finally does just knock out the Miz, I think it's going to be a great reaction.
I think it's going to be a fantastic reaction, and I could see them being among the last guys in the ring, and Mizdow eliminating Miz to get that great reaction with maybe the tease that he won it, but there's one more participant who brogue kicks him over the top and becomes instantly the biggest heel in the company for eliminating Mizdow. If you're going to turn Sheamus heel, why not? Right?
I think that's the way to go with the guy. I think it's a very flat character at this point. He needs to come in with a fresh coat of paint, maybe a haircut, and change up those colors. I think a drastic change to the Sheamus character is in order.
When you say colors, are you referring to a tan, maybe a little tan?
No, we can't go crazy. Let's not expect too much for the guy to come back unless it was an all-expense-paid trip to Barbados or something for the guy.
That's a little too hot for him. He might come back lobster red.
Probably not. He hasn't had any heat for quite a while, so he could use some. But that is our preview of WrestleMania. And the build has not wowed me. But you look at this card, and this has always been how I've maintained it, is that the television is what it is, and I think people will consume it. But you tune in to WrestleMania, I think it's going to be a good show. I think a lot of people would have to have pretty bad performances for this to be a terrible show. But you look up and down, and it's like the pieces are there for it to be a good show. And you can certainly, though, criticize the build-up this year and change different parts and where the interest level is. But where is your interest level in comparison to other WrestleManias? Is it high, medium, low?
It's kind of between high and medium because it has been getting better over the last few weeks. But I have a little bit of a theory as to this year's build. It's almost like Christmas every year as you get older. Like every year as it gets closer to Christmas, it's like, well, you know what? It doesn't feel like Christmas. And this year, I got kind of that same feeling where it's like, it doesn't feel like WrestleMania season yet. You know what I mean? But like you said, I think on WrestleMania Sunday, it's going to be like that. Man, I think it's going to be a great event. I think it's going to deliver. I have high expectations. Maybe I should not
lower those, Jimmy.
Lower the bar so that when anything good happens.
Expect little, receive lots.
Exactly. But I think it's going to be a great show. I just, like you said, it's a weird kind of like I said, like going into Christmas when you say it doesn't feel like Christmas. It's like not getting snow before Christmas. It just doesn't feel that way.
It's raining on December 21st, but we'll find out what happens on Sunday. It's WrestleMania play button. You can follow this man at Jimmy Corderas and tune in Sunday night. It's a special 3-hour post-show edition of Live Audio Wrestling. Dan Lavransky and Jason Agnew will be running down the entire card. I will be joining them live from San Jose because I will be at the show, so you can tune into that. LiveAudioWrestling.com. Thank you for tuning in for our WrestleMania preview.